special guest, Tarot and Oracle for the Soul. And she has pre-selected a few colors of how we are going to proceed on this Eight of Wands. And while I am turning the camera down, she is going to tell us about her channel and what it is that she does in this world. Big question, but anyways, we'll start there.
All
And
right.
welcome, Selena.
Hey,
Welcome.
Selena. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Bill, so much for introducing me and having me on today. I'm usually not in the hot seat. I'm usually where you are interviewing people. So this is I'm nervous. Hi, Angie. Hi.
Oh, you thought some of a mess. Um, all right, now I am in a position where, in order to get the best view, I have the camera almost at eye level, and so that's where I am at. I need a new joint here. It's starting to wear out.
Oh no.
So I'm using what I'm using here for my setup is a boom microphone stand that I so it's got a hinge on it. It's got a
Okay.
hinge on it, and then on the end of it, where you might put a microphone mount, well, I put I put a camera mount on there, and so it's got a screw thing on it, and it's got a ball joint, and so that ball joint thing or whatever the screw is starting to wear out, and and so granted they're not all that expensive, and but you know how it is. You don't really want to like change your equipment out and spend money on something you don't want to spend money on.
Exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
yeah. All right. So I'm gonna get started with her requests here. We're gonna be working on our skills of telepathy here and seeing what she wants, and and uh, and she's going to tell us all about her channel and so forth.
All right. So my name is Sarah, and right now the channel I'm on promoting is Tarot and Oracle for the Soul. However, my original channel that I started about 5 years ago is called Sarah's Prismatic Musings, and that channel was to uh, be about my business, which is tarot and oracle readings, Reiki, hypnosis, um, guided meditations. I am a certified hypnotherapist, and I have studied Usui Reiki, and also Blue Star Reiki, and lots of different Reikis. So Bill wanted me to kind of talk about Reiki with y'all today.
Well,
And
I didn't know about this hypnotherapy stuff and this other stuff.
yeah, so I'm a certified hypnotherapist as well. So on my original channel, if you go way, way, way back, like 5 years ago, there are some scripts where I do some guided meditation. Um, so you can go listen to that. My husband is actually not only an artist, but he's a sound engineer. So I got to go into the studio and with professional equipment record a hypno session, and I also am a shamanic practitioner, so I was doing shamanic drumming in the background. That was my intro for a while, was my shamanic drumming. um so yeah, I really love shamanic Reiki. That's one of my favorites because with that, so let me go back. Sorry. Reiki is universal life force energy, and it was brought over from Japan. So Usui is his last name. He was a Buddhist priest, and he went up to a mountain to meditate, and he got these downloads of what he called Reiki, which is universal life force energy. And he went and he opened up a clinic to help heal people. So it's a form of hands on healing. that
You
you could.
know, I was like thinking, I'm sorry, what did they call it before it was downloads? Because you see, before that, we never really heard that term downloads until the Matrix movie came into
uh,
play. We were talking about the downloading of information, and now everybody says, "Oh, I'm getting a download," and so using computer terms to define the accessing of spiritual information. And so, What did like? How long ago was Reiki? Did that come into being?
oh man, it's been a while. Like I would have to go grab my, let me see when it, give me 1 second.
Yeah.
Um I had prepared a whole talk on the 8 of Wands, so I didn't make notes on my Reiki. So Reiki was discovered by Makawa Yusui in the 1920s. He did a 21-day meditation retreat on Mount Karama. So he established the clinic in 1922, and then he started teaching it. It didn't come over until later. I think it was a Hawaiian woman who brought it to the United States.
Mm. So it's relatively new then, whereas
Yeah.
like shaman techniques, those have been going for forever. It goes back to who knows how long, back to the dawn of time, or when humans were running around in skins, they were doing these shaman things and that kind of stuff. And so, if human beings were ever running around in skins, I mean,
Right.
we could have just popped off the ark of the spaceship and started running around in silver clothes and whatnot. I don't. Yeah,
Yeah. So
and
she, Takata, her last name's Takata. She brought it to Hawaii in 1937,
mm,
and then it spread. But yeah, I'm not sure what they call it. What it? Yeah, like maybe it was like an awakening, or I mean, it's interesting because I don't think I started learning Reiki until after the Matrix came out. So it's interesting that you brought that point up.
well, yeah, because I remember when my I've had multiple experiences, and they start back when, like, I was baptized as a Lutheran when I was like 9 or 11. I can't remember which one it was now. And then each one of these points, I had this like point of contact, which was like opening a telephone line. And so back in that day, that's how I described it. Was like I picked up the telephone and I started listening.
Mm.
But what did people think about? Oh, I guess then it'd be like your dreams and your visions and everything, but it wasn't necessarily like getting information through a dream, but it was just like, oh, the information just sort of flowed in there. Like,
Yeah, I think it came through like a vision while he was meditating.
I see.
So he received the symbols through his third eye. He saw these
Mhm.
symbols, and because so Reiki uses symbols, kanji symbols, obviously because it's Japanese, and you use these symbols. You draw them on your palms of your hands or on the person you're working on, and you just allow this universal life force energy to flow through you into the person. Uh,
Mm.
and it works more on the subtle energy body. So it takes a while. Like you would have to get Reiki almost every day for it to heal you physically, but it has been known to heal physical ailments. You just have to do it daily.
So, um is Reiki like chiropractic? Is it like that? Is it like backcracking or something like that? I know it's
No,
it's different,
no,
but but the chiropractors claim that they can heal everything by just adjusting your spine and everything else, or, hitting you with a hammer or something like that. I've never been to a chiropractor, but, uh, I'm sorry, but I just, like, was thinking that was kind of how what popped into my head. So it's not like that, but it's kind of like, or is it like, you'd watch these old videos or movies in health class, and where they would talk different cultural things, and maybe you would take a candle and then you shove it in a person's ear, and then you start trying to suck out the energy, or as a candle, or some kind of a force, or some kind of a burning kind of a thing. I don't know, some kind of like a tube, and you're trying to draw out. That's more shamanic thing, and trying to draw out this negative spirit or this negative energy, because or maybe that's just Hollywood, or that, but you know.
So, what you're talking about is actually ear candling, and that's a holistic practice. I mean, I've gone and bought ear candles for my ears,
Yeah,
um, to suck the earwax out of your ears.
earwax, is that what it is?
Yeah, so that's what that is. But no, Reiki. So, it's just symbols and intention, and it works basically when you get the attunements. The symbols are drawn in specific parts of your body, and especially your hands, and then you have those symbols. For me, my hands get really really warm, so a lot of actual massage therapists become Reiki practitioners as well, because it works perfectly with um, massage therapy. So there's
Mhm.
different points on the body where you can touch them. I have always liked to work more off the body, so I'll like hover above somebody's head. So it's like the top of their head, the back of their head, the side of beside, like right in front of their ears, over their eyes. So you wouldn't want to put your hands necessarily over someone's eyes. Like, I'm claustrophobic. If somebody like put their hands over my eyes and on my face, I would probably have a panic attack.
Mm,
And then lightly over like their throat, upper chest, over the solar plexus, and then like over the belly, and then knees, ankles, and feet. And then so you hold those positions. Now you'll feel like maybe hot or cold, and you may stay there longer. Or if you feel like a block, you'll go stay there longer. And then when you're done, you literally like kind of sweep them, or at least I do. So you can do these treatments sitting like in a chair, like what I'm doing right now, or on a massage table. I have on Sarah's Prismatic Musings on my original channel, I have a sample chair Reiki treatment where I'm giving my husband a full treatment. So you can watch that. On that channel, I have shorts where I'm sending people distance Reiki. So
mhm,
the first level of Reiki, there's levels. The first level of Reiki, you learn the hand positions and you get the attunements to have your hand chakras activated. The second level, you learn how to send distance Reiki. So it's like, I tell people, it's like prayer. You're sending
mhm.
someone a prayer through the form of Reiki and these symbols, and it will help heal them from a distance. Yeah, I sent Selena some Reiki. So, Bill, I could actually send you some distance Reiki right now if you would like, and you can tell people what you feel.
Well, I can you can, but I probably, because I'm why don't you see if that does work? Because what I mean by that is, where am I, like, in a place where I'm open enough that I might actually experience that?
We'll see. I mean, if you say you're open and you're open to receiving, you should be able to. You know, you're already relaxed, you're coloring, you're talking to me.
Hmm.
So, like, while I'm doing this, I can feel the heat in my hands. So you can't see me, Bill, but I have one hand kind of cupped and another hand over it, and
Mhm.
I'm kind of manipulating the energy. I don't know if you and your friends ever, like, made energy balls when you were like a teenager. I remember like kids making energy balls. They kind of
Mm.
teach you, I think I want to say in like karate. Like I did Tai Chi when I was in high school, and they kind of teach you um, some of this stuff in like karate and Tai Chi as well, to work with energy and to feel
Mhm.
and sense the energy.
Huh. So I think maybe I might be too distracted.
Okay.
That's, but what do you feel anything from me on your end, or is it just all of, what is it that you experience by
When I'm sending Reiki to people, I just feel the intense heat. It's a lot of
Mm,
heat, and then I just focus on the person, like, I envision you in my mind's eye, and, I repeat the symbol names, like, as a mantra in my head, um, repeatedly, and you don't have to, that's just me, or sometimes I like to say the mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. I love that mantra, that's my favorite. I love mantras, and Hindu mantras are my
mm,
favorite. I just think it's beautiful. So it just helps me get into a meditative state, and I just send um the Reiki and hold you, and say that mantra over and over again. So,
mm,
um, for me, it's very relaxing and calming as well. So yeah, you probably would want to be in a relaxed state, but you don't have to. So then when I'm done, I like to clap my hands and then do this to cut the energy. You may not feel it right away, Bill, but since I sent it to you, you actually could feel it at any time today. You may feel it when we log off here today, and you
mm,
may feel like warmth or tingling. You may even feel cool. Some people feel coolness. With me, sometimes if I'm touching someone and I'm giving them Reiki, I've been told to please remove my hands from them because I'm literally burning them. It's too hot.
mm,
So with me, when I send Reiki, it's usually heat.
mm. Well, I do think I feel like a little bit of a sensation in my head. Um, it kind of feels similar to when I am asking when I'm doing tarot or oracle or doing an energy reading on a person, and I'm trying to I'm trying to interpret what I'm experiencing and trying to relate that. And that's kind of what I kind of feel like in this moment.
That's cool. Yeah, you can feel like tingly and like or like pressure even. Um some people like when I'm giving Reiki and I'm really in a meditative state, I will see colors. Like I'll see a
Mm,
vortex of colors, different colors swirling. Um when I'm receiving Reiki, I usually see colors as well. So I can tell, like, but of course, you have to have your eyes closed and be in a very meditative state for that to happen. And since you're coloring,
yeah, that's interesting. And so then you have the symbols, and there are these symbols that are these Japanese symbols.
has somebody asked, Mama Sushi asked, have you heard of a Reiki implant? Um, I have not heard of that, but it kind of sounds like anchoring, which is what you do in attunements. You anchor the symbol into the person's auric field, into their chakra system, so then they can channel that symbol. So, but a Reiki implant, no. I mean, I to me, implant sounds like something that when the aliens abduct you and they put tech in you.
Yeah,
Um,
so in a sense, I chose the 8 of Wands because you said you didn't have very much time, and I figured the 8 of Wands would be a fast card to do. But then as you were doing this and thinking, like, well, maybe the 8 of Wands is a perfect card to have chosen for this conversation because and you are in trying to in sending energy from afar, you are sending this energy in, and it's coming in, streaking in through all of these rods of fire that are just there's there's no evidence that there's anybody throwing them. They're just arriving at this other point.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I like rods as fire energy. I like rods as action and swiftness and heat. So I think that is really cool. I think, that is a good representation of Reiki, especially when I send it. I mean, other people, like I said, it could be cool. It could be like feel more like water, or like tingling. But with
Yeah,
me, it's like it's heat. It is fire.
fire.
So
Okay.
each person sends Reiki differently. Like it can feel different, and each person can receive Reiki differently.
Mhm.
So no two experiences will be the same.
So then your ability to does your ability to send and receive um so
Hi,
does your
Alexis. Hi.
welcome,
Welcome.
Alexa. So does let's say because I this is one of the things I think about or wonder about is if your current state of being, whether you're like maybe super anxious or maybe are have ventured into low vibration energies, does that can you operate Reiki or do things the it when because people are all over the place in any given time because no one can maintain a high vibration state all the time and because we are human beings and we have all these things that drive us and so that does the gift does this gift of the spirit work regardless of what your state of being is. Does that make any
Absolutely.
sense?
Yes. So, it's some people don't pray or ask for a miracle unless they're in dire straits, right? Like they're in
Yeah.
the throes of addiction, or their life is in shambles and they're at their lowest point, and they pray and they receive a miracle, or they see an angel comes to their rescue. So uh, Reiki is the same thing. The practitioner can be in a state of fear, or and still send Reiki and still receive. But to
Mhm.
receive Reiki, you have to be open. Some
Mhm.
people block it, whether consciously or not. Sometimes people it's subconsciously they have like preconceived notions or fear, or they don't understand, or maybe they just don't trust the person, and so they block the energy. So um with Reiki, you have to, receive permission. Um, and people don't understand this, especially in the Christian community. They're like, pray, let's pray for everybody, but maybe that person doesn't want prayers. Um,
Yeah.
maybe, I feel like it's part of integrity that you should get permission from the person. Now,
Mhm.
not everyone you can get permission. Like a baby, say a baby's in the ICU, and the parent wants you to send Reiki. You can check in with that baby's higher self and ask, "Can I send you Reiki?" And you'll get a yes or a no. Because we all have free will, or even ask the spirits of like the land, before you send Reiki, because you can Reiki anything. You can Reiki a vacuum cleaner. I did that. I worked as a caregiver for a little while, and my coworker would always be like, "Oh, the vacuum is broken." Now, I don't know if she was lying or not, but I would Reiki the vacuum cleaner and it always worked for me.
Mhm.
So I was like, either she's lying or, but I know that Reiki works. Like sometimes people have Reiki their car has just stopped working and they
Yeah.
send their car Reiki and it works. It allows them to either get to like a mechanic to fix it or to the gas station. Like even if like they just need gas, it will
Yeah, yeah,
allow you. So it's
I know.
really cool that um inanimate objects will react to this energy. But that's the thing is nothing's really inanimate. We all have energy and we all are made up of the same particles, atoms and
Yeah,
so
the stuff
so
that
it
comes from the
works.
stars.
So
That was when you were saying that, it reminded me of when I was, like, in a 'cause I studied Bible on both the undergraduate and the graduate level, and, it reminded me of a class, and one of the professors or so was talking about that, about prayer. And, oh, yeah, and the person that's praying, it did if they pray for that parking spot, did that parking spot magically appear there? Or was it that they're just too obsessive, and you don't really need to pray for every nickel and dime thing that comes your way, you know? And so that's kinda what I was thinking about when you were talking about breaking inanimate objects and so forth, but nevertheless, sorry to interrupt you, but it's like,
what
but
did
yeah.
your teacher feel about, sending prayers to people who didn't ask for it or, you
Oh,
didn't get
I don't think that in Orthodox Christianity, there is no prohibition against praying for people, even for people who don't want prayers, because no one that's a question that no one has ever asked, and so there's an assumption that you must want these things. Because I think there was like a when I was in college, and there was this Bible school across the street, and they were really sort of a radical group, and they were always mixing it up in the community, and then of course they would pick people, and they would like them to drop out of school or something like that, and in different things, and yeah, I don't know, but it's always felt that that was unethical for a person to do that.
So wait, they would pick somebody who was having issues and pray for them or like pray that they would drop out of school. I'm sorry.
I don't know, different people, they would hope that because they would see that this person is being corrupted by education is corrupting their soul, and therefore we need to save these people, and so they need to stop being educated, especially if you are being educated in academic study of religion,
That
because
sounds horrible. That sounds so unethical. So when I was in the church, when I'm a confirmed Catholic, raised Catholic against my will, I like to say, and Protestant Congregationalist. I remember growing up and I received more psychic attacks as a Christian than I ever have once I left the church because I
Mhm,
feel like as Christians, you don't ask those ethical questions. You just pray. You pray for anything and everything, and you don't ask for permission. You feel like you're just sending a prayer. But you know what? In the magical community, that's almost like a spell. A prayer can be like a spell. And if you didn't get that person's permission, even if it's the best intention on your part, you can get that kickback, right? Like in
mhm,
spells, there's always blowback.
mhm.
So first of all, Christians don't necessarily know how to energetically protect themselves. That's not taught. You just pray, which, okay, yeah, that can work, but there's just so many layers to it. And I feel like that's almost like an instant, if you don't want to say like blowback from a spell, you can say that's instant karma. Like, so
Mhm.
those people who are praying for that student to leave school, they're gonna receive their karma. It's gonna come back to them instantly.
Yeah.
And I
It
noticed, in the church and as and and what we're seeing at the mass level right now is Christians always feel like the victim and they always feel attacked. And it's because I don't think that they really follow a set of ethics or even have spiritual hygiene. Just speaking from my own personal experience, I did, now that I've been out of the church, like I left the church a long time ago, I feel like the Catholics are closer. There's a lot of spirituality and a lot of spiritual truths being taught in the Catholic Church, but it's too guarded and only a certain few people get to actually have the truth.
Mhm.
And I mean that's my personal opinion, but I think that they also corrupt a lot of spiritual truth.
Yeah, it's so I was confirmed Catholic by choice. So I was confirmed twice, once as a Lutheran and then once as a Catholic after when I was like 20, was I 27? After I took a trip to Israel and had my mind just completely blown apart by all that, but that sort of kind of set the stage for where I'm at today. And kind of that whole sense of that intuition or whatever you're talking about, if we're talking about a different thing, but it's like there's a lot of knowledge and where of course no one has necessarily taught this, but um what spirit taught me anyways was is that that experience is our experience, and the resurrect whatever, it's like the Jesus experience is our experience. And now, whether Jesus existed or not, it doesn't matter. Actually, I kind of might run down the line where thinking that maybe there was no um, historical Jesus. I'm
Yeah.
kind of like at odds with that, but I think, but you see, this is the thing is that your intentions make it real. And so when I look at how, let's say, walking down the streets of Jerusalem, and there was so much energy there in the stones, and it
Mm.
made me think is, well, was the energy here because it was pre-existent there, or was it because for 1,000 years or 2,000 years that people's intention made it that way? And I kind of think of that like it's like a technology, and you have this technology of being able to manipulate things. And so, like in the Gospel of Thomas or in the Gospels, Jesus said, you can make these mountains move, and they will move. Now, and no one has never does this, but what he's talking about is that intention, and you can put forth that energy in there, and you can make real changes in this world. And that's kind of how you look at it. And then so in a sense of where I kind of got that thing was where I used to spend a lot of time in monasteries, and I would go to monasteries just to unwind and to hang out. But what was interesting is that as soon as I drove onto the property, there was chaos on the highway side, but as soon as I'd hit the driveway side, it was this cool peace that just washed over me. Now, so
Hmm.
then what that suggests is that there were these property boundaries, and these monks, they'd only been praying there for like what, 150 years, maybe.
Yeah,
And so,
so I think that meditation and prayer definitely changes the vibration and the energy of a place. And intention, I mean, that's all that spell work is, and that's what prayer is. So yeah, it's charging up the stones or the place. And so if we believe something to hold magic or to hold power, we put that on it and we create it. And you have hundreds of millions of people through thousands and thousands of years. Imagine the power. So I couldn't imagine what you were feeling. Like, that sounds amazing. I kind of feel that in Sedona. When you go to Sedona and you come into town and you're among these red rocks and the natural beauty. It's just, and the Native Americans went there. That was their sacred ground. They did a lot of energy work and healing there. So you can feel that, and there's a lot of vortexes. So, and they've done studies. I kind of studied religion in college as an undergrad. I can't get into Christianity. I just have um too many um the fact that it was pushed on me, like, I didn't have a choice. I was baptized as both congregationalist and Catholic, and I didn't realize that my mother had made a promise to a priest that I would be confirmed in the Catholic Church. Now, she always placed it on my father because he's the Catholic, that I
Mhm.
had to be confirmed because, of my father. But I just found out that it was because the priest would only baptize me in the Catholic Church after being baptized in her church if she promised that I would be confirmed as a Catholic. And okay, I was already mad, but finding out that my mother made a promise that she had no business making, like, that priest was so unethical.
Mhm.
So that's why I had to be confirmed Catholic, even though I, before, getting my confirmation, going to the priest and confessing and just sitting there bawling, being like, I don't support this church. I don't support this religion. The way that you treated women and the Crusades and the way that you conquered people and the misinformation and the
Yeah.
greed and the horrors of this Catholic Church, I cannot in good conscience be confirmed. And he just
Mhm.
said, "Oh, go and read blah 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 verse and do your,
Yeah.
20 Hail Marys or whatever." It didn't matter, right? Like,
Mhm.
they were like, "We got another one, we got another soul." Like, it just is ick. I just have just like always this
Well,
ick. But
yeah, so
looking back, like, my CCD education was phenomenal compared to my mom's church. They taught us and they treated us like, intelligent human beings. And I did get to learn more about the Bible from Catholicism than I did anywhere else. But I got off point. Sorry, sorry, sorry. What
oh,
was
no,
I saying?
it's okay. I appreciate this because, I don't have any religious trauma because it was never forced on me. And 'cause my father was like an atheist or agnostic. And so you have and my mother had kind of cho her parents were I think her mom was Congregationalist because she has these pilgrim roots or, and so forth. And then her father a was was a Lutheran from Germany, but of Jewish descent. And so it was one of those things that it was adopting, like who knows when, 1,000 years ago, that the family adopted Christianity, or when Germany became the folk became a Lutheran country, that they adopted Lutheranism in order to hide because but what you were talking about really reminded me of what is wrong with the what is wrong with the church, and is also wrong about this current rendition of it's not the majority, but they speak as though they're the majority. What is wrong with this current rendition of American evangelicalism is that they have adopted the Catholic convert or die mentality that the Catholic priests, that they would send these people out into the world, and you either became us or we kill you.
Right.
And that force method, that's that. That's that and so that is everything that is wrong with Christianity, but Christianity as we know it did not come into existence until 320, 321.
Mhm.
And then it has its origins between 320 and 380, and that was when it became a legal religion in the Roman Empire, and so it is heavily infused in politics and in power and everything else.
It is. And you can see I've been reading a lot of really great books by women authors about the evangelical church and how much money they've spent on presidents and
Mhm.
winning elections and the yeah, it really is like a throwback to Catholicism because Catholicism was very wrapped up in politics.
Mhm.
Um, and it's interesting to read the history from a woman's standpoint, um, and seeing how she, as an evangelical woman, views the church and
And
her
and
experience and why she stays. Madame Maru, I haven't read the Red 10. I need to read that. It's on my wish list I mean my to be TBR.
so
Sorry, go ahead.
just briefly, like, I don't I know a little bit about evangelicalism, but all I kind of put blocks up in my mind to, and especially in the last 10 years, to any of that energy. And, I like to say that I'm a religious universalist, but I realize that, I'm not. I'm not because there are pieces of religion that I completely reject.
Uh-huh.
And so and fundamentalism is one of the aspects of religion that I completely reject. But
Yeah.
nevertheless, but what is I had like 2 thoughts. It was and I forgot. But let me just go with one of the thoughts before I could forget all the way, is that there is a really good book out there by a guy named, I think, Reza Aslan, and it's, God: A Human History. And that book, I've read it a few times in an audio sense. I've had it and I gave it away and I've never got it back, but that's fine. You put that intention out there, and it is written by, it's a Reza Aslan, I think, is either a historian or he's a religious scholar, and it kind of puts everything in context, and it gives you a different viewpoint. So it's not like, oh, you need to believe or whatnot, but it just goes through the history of human history, and it goes through the little iterations of religion, and how most of it's all interpreted. God is interpreted through the eyes of current events,
Mm.
and just a totally different thing. That's one thing, but the other question is briefly, what is it about evangelicalism that's so attractive to people?
I think that people are afraid of freedom. I think people are afraid of spirituality. I think people are afraid of having agency over their own life. I think people like scripts and they like following scripts. And so they like being told, well, you do A, B, C, D, rather than having the freedom to just live their life. Um, I think people like giving away their power. I think we do this. I mean, I know as a young girl and as a woman, we are trained to give away our power. We are trained to give away our agency, but we all are boys, girls. I can only speak from my experience as a woman, but I think people are
Mhm.
afraid to take control of their life and take control of their destiny. You know, when so I read tarot professionally, and so many people want to give me their power. And I tell them before I give them readings, I read your past energy, your present energy, and your potential energy if you continue in this energy you're in right now. This is your potential outcome. If you stop doing the work or you change one thing, outcome isn't going to happen. You have the power. And if you don't like your cards, if you don't like the outcome right now, change it. You
Mhm.
have the power. I don't like this idea of fate or destiny. I don't believe in that. We create our own fate and destiny.
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
preface that if you're coming to me and you want me to just say, oh, well, this is what's going to happen, that's gross to me. Like, I don't want that responsibility, first of all. And second of all, I don't have that kind of power. Don't give that to me. You have all the power yourself. If you want to do something, take the steps, like write out, your action plan. How are you going to get there? And take one step at a time, you know? Um, and this whole idea of the tarot reader is knows all and be no,
No,
nobody.
I had a I had a fella, I think a couple nights ago, because I've done, was it 4 lives now on Tools of Fortune? And one of them said, "Well, you have to be a master first to read other people's cards." And I said, "When do I know I'm a master?"
Right.
And it's just like, okay, I have this thing in my life, and I've done it multiple times where I've jumped into things without really having the adequate knowledge base first. But there's a desire to want to have the knowledge base first before you do things. But then I've come to realize that since I crossed over 40 or so, and I'm almost 60, is that if you're going to wait until you have the knowledge to do something, you'll never do anything.
Yeah, and if you wait for the perfect time is never gonna happen. It's never gonna come.
Yeah.
So you literally have to just do it. I I took tarot classes through my 30s, and I had been studying tarot since my 20s. So, it's a real thing. It's a real thing of never feeling like you know enough and never. But one of my tarot teachers was like, she took one class, and then they were looking the where she had taken the class, they were looking for readers, and she just said, "I'll do it." And she just jumped in and she learned as she went. And
Mhm.
I think that's so brave of her. And I think that's amazing. She had the opportunity, she saw it, she took it. She didn't wait to be like, I know everything. Because especially with tarot, and especially tarot, it's a lifelong pursuit of learning. So you might as well just
Start.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I've been studying tarot for a little over 2 years, and that's when I started tarot was the intention started like a year or so before, but it really kind of entered into divination entered into my consciousness way before then. But because of training or whatever, I couldn't go there. But it was after, when I started this channel, I really wanted to do tarot, but I'd never even, to my knowledge, I hadn't even seen a tarot deck.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
but I have a phantom memory. I think it's a phantom memory. I'm not sure. A beam, a kid, and trying to play solitaire with a deck, a tarot de Marseille deck, and that belonged to my great grandmother. Or it belonged to my grandmother. My dad's on my father's side, his mother, and it was at his mother's house, and I wasn't able to go to that family reunion in that house because of my mother's health at that time. She wasn't up to it, so we didn't go. But I don't know if that memory is a real memory or if it, but I just had this memory of trying to make heads or tails of this Tarot de Marseille
That's
of
cool.
and that's just kind of it's there and so and it sort of appeared there but so with my and I mentioned this multiple times on this channel where that kickoff point began and it was in what 2022 no it was 2 years ago in March and both my mother and I got COVID at the same time pretty much.
Oh, wow.
My mother was in the hospital with it and I was at home and I was talking to my aunt and and it was about something and then it was something and it was like I was given permission from my aunt from my great grandmother who's been passed on for quite a long time because she was born in 1890
Oh, wow.
that I got permission to go and do this and so and then it was like my sister I wasn't even in it like a month before my sister said, "Well, maybe you need to, start doing this professionally." Because my sister is a little bit more witchy than because it seems the women on the my the Lindbergh side of my family are all either straight up rationalists or they're a little bit more on the witchy side. Every single one of them, and yeah, and I, but uh but nevertheless, that's kind of how my journey started. But then as I was doing it, my before that my first tarot deck even arrived, I was thinking, well, how hard could it be? How hard could it be? It's just gonna be simple. So how hard could it be? And
Right.
I had that said that same question before I started bartending. And but once I got into the bartending, I realized, "Oh my god, this is the hardest job I've ever had in my life."
Yeah.
And but then I nevertheless, when I was in doing this, it feels like, well, okay, this is like the beginnings of a new career. That's kind of how I look at it. I don't know if I'm looking at it right. Maybe I'm completely wrong here, but
I
nevertheless,
that tarot, it needs every type of energy, right? From everybody. Um,
Mhm.
there's a lot of young men who are lost and looking for guidance. And they there's not many men who are outside of the church who they can turn to.
Yeah,
Um, you know, I always before we moved, there was a young man who came and got a reading almost like monthly from me. And if we had stayed there, I probably would have, started mentoring him and have my husband help because he's very spiritual as well. But these young men, I feel like if they saw more men like yourself giving tarot readings, um, I think it would be really beneficial
yeah,
to step outside of that control of religion. Um, I feel like religion is set up for men by men, um, and it becomes a really toxic place. But if you step out of that and um, you work on your spirituality, and you see that, and you work on your emotional intelligence and
mhm,
your um, just becoming a better person. Um, I don't think that it has to be mutually exclusive. There's plenty of Christian witches out there, and there's plenty of Christians and, Muslims and Hindus who read tarot and oracle, and there's, these things don't have to be exclusive. But I just think that we could use more masculine energy in the space, not to take it over, but just to help um guide young men that it's not just a space for women or or feminine energy. Like you said, you had that person make that comment to you
Yeah,
on your
yeah,
channel,
the
on
first
your
one.
live.
Mhm.
And I think that really what the male movement needs in this country, at least, is that to not be afraid of their feminine side, to not be afraid of feminine energy. Feminine energy can be just as fierce, if not more so than male energy. And
Yeah,
the dark goddesses show us that. Kali and Lilith
sure. I
and
mean, if you don't have to go that far, you could just look into the animal kingdom.
right, the
And
true.
when like, the other day, and this was a totally amazing experience that I had, and I was sitting on my patio where the outdoor internet signal is the strongest, but, to do a live outside of the house, I really have to, like, be almost sitting right up against the wall for the
Uh,
Wi-Fi. And if I just stray even like 3 feet away from the wall, it starts to pixelate or get blurry. You have a chance that it just isn't going to work well. Anyways, but I didn't have my camera with me, and I was sitting on the patio, and this was in the middle of June, and I think it was like the first really hot day we had here. It was like maybe 95 degrees, um, and at first there was a squirrel came by, and it had its cheeks just puffed up full of nuts. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. You don't get to see that every day. But I was just sitting there quietly. I think the wind was blowing the other way, so they couldn't smell me. Didn't know that I was there.
yeah.
I was completely invisible, but I was just sucked up against the wall. But then about a half hour or so later, that same squirrel came by, but then his cheeks were really bulging out, and I think, wow. And then it came and it walked within just inches of my feet. As it went down some stairs, but then I noticed that in its mouth was some feet were hanging out.
Feet.
And and so it was transporting one of its pups
Oh, okay.
from and was moving it from, and it was too hot. I figured, oh, it must have been too hot in its den, and so it's moving it, and it moved it down to the creek, and so it moved it to a. So it was like this would be a giant trek to take when you have this big weight in your mouth, and it was like too. The mother was too laden down, and with this effort to skitter away because there was this human being there, and humans are dangerous beings for most animals. And you could have the best intentions, but even your best intentions, maybe if they were to go look into my energy, they would see that in 2020 I trapped 15 or 18 squirrels and moved them off the property because there was this huge. And I said I would live trap them, but I don't know if they survived. I mean, I felt extremely guilty about doing that, but it's just like there's one of my neighbors who's a contractor, and he talked about the hundreds of thousands of dollars of damage the squirrel can cause if they get in your house.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have property, and you have to take good stewardship of the resources that you have, and you can't have rats in your house, you can't have mice in your house, you can't have squirrels crawling up the walls and getting into the attic and chewing on your power lines and everything. You can't have that. And so then
Exactly.
you have to make these hard choices, and this is where human beings become very dangerous to creatures in the animal kingdom, is because the only creatures that really like us are dogs and cats, and everything else, because we don't eat dogs and cats.
Right.
And we if I were to segue to another thing, and my friends, both liberal and conservative, think I'm absolutely nuts when I talk that we think that we need it as a people. We need to begin doing that lab grown meat. We need to completely dump that whole factory farm industry altogether, and go into growing, because it's like people like that. People like prime rib. They like hamburgers. They like these things. And if you grow it in a vat, is it an animal product anymore? Or is it like that, like in the Matrix, they get this goo and they're eating this goo, and this goo becomes whatever they think it is in their mind? You know what I'm saying?
I
And
do.
so, but it's like you have I guess maybe you have this jump forward, and maybe I know that I'm like completely mired down in science fiction, and and nevertheless, but I'm kind of getting off way off topic here. But that what I was talking about is you have that fierce female energy that exists in the animal kingdom to do what it takes in order to protect their young.
Exactly. And
And
human moms will do the same thing.
Mhm.
Lifting cars, moving cars off children, doing crazy feats just to save their child.
Yeah. So what do you think so far? We have this little bit left down here to do, and I
I think it looks awesome. I love the color choices. I think the ground should be pinks and reds.
so it should be all the pretty much the same kinds of colors here. So maybe it's more like these other kinds of colors that are kind of similar, but they have some more brown tones and some more green tones in it.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I'll do that. So yeah, I have really loved this conversation.
Bye, Elizabeth. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Dawn.
Yeah, that's me. I am like the tangent queen. Like I start talking and then I'm like, oh, what was my point?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, for the record, my Christianity is I think if I were to I probably should do a show on this to really to define the fact is that I don't actually, um, I don't line up in any form of orthodoxy at all. So I would say you would be like maybe in name only.
What do you mean?
In name only. And being that okay, so if you're looking, let's say you're looking at what does that mean? If you look down the Nicene Creed, do I believe this and that? Do I believe in the virgin birth? And actually, I don't necessarily believe anything on the Nicene Creed. And and the fact is that I don't necessarily believe that Jesus was even born here.
Uh-huh.
And so that actually, in that sense, that would be oh well, then I just use these symbols and like a tarot card.
Yeah.
That's as far as I'm gonna go with that. I'm sorry, but that's just I was just kind of putting that out there, and just just because it's the word is so triggering, and it's especially triggering in the United States right today.
Yes.
It is like the word because it's because there's but then I mean because this small subset set has poisoned the whole barrel for everybody,
True.
you know? And that's kind of how I look at it. But anyways, I kind of digress and
It it's very triggering for me, especially considering that I already had religious trauma and I feel like I brought a lot of religious trauma from past lives into this life and then into the family I was born into
Mhm.
and having it like force fed. And I was born like knowing, having this knowing of how I viewed God, how I viewed the world. Um, and how my views were very 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 different from what I was indoctrinated with as a child. I grew up believing that um um there's a universal life force energy, so reiki's like perfect for that. If it's in, I believe in a universal like that God is a source of energy, whether that's light or sound or frequency, and um, that God is not, there's no form to God. It's just energy. And that maybe the gods of all the religions are lesser beings. They're not God, like the unnameable one, like source. I call God source. I always have.
Mhm.
But that these other beings are, you know, extraterrestrials, aliens, other dimensional beings that created us. Um, and so that's always kind of been my take. And that I've always been interested in psychology. Psychology has always been my thing. So I believe like tarot taps into these archetypal energies and symbols, like you said, and religion does the same thing. Um, these energy imprints that we all carry within us or have potential to tap into. Um, but I believe that religion, all religions, whether it's Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, are set in place to um, set about control and
Mhm.
telling people, like, you're a boy, this is how you act. You're a girl, this is how you act. And why spirituality is so dangerous to organized religion is because it tells you no.
That
There are
it
variations, and
is
you
it
don't
free
act
it
that way.
frees the person. I think that, like, I remember an experience when my in this house, when my grandmother was my mother's mother, she died in this house,
Oh,
um, and during that process, of course, my grandmother, well, I never thought of her as a religious person because I think she wasn't, and she just was who she was. But during that process, it was like you could see the layers and the layers of whatever being peeled back, and then at the end, there was only one thing that was important, which was family and family connections and
mm,
relationships. And so all of this other stuff was entertainment. It's
right.
fluff, matter. And so so it's like one of the things I did like about um, the experience of going. I mean, because I went when I was lived up in Seattle. I did a lot of what you would call church tourism, but you go into a place and then you experience the rituals and all of that intention, but you didn't necessarily need to believe anything that they teach to experience that magic.
Right.
But you go as soon as you go to a coffee hour, but coffee hours or whatever, they don't necessarily ask. No one's ever asked me anything. And so they don't, and so since somebody asks me anything, I don't tell them anything. So they don't ask me what I think, and so I'm not going to tell them that I think that the aliens did it, or I'm not going to tell them that I think that what that the Eucharist is that's essentially magic, that
Right.
you're performing a magic spell, or I don't tell them that I believe in reincarnation, or I don't tell them that these other things, because you didn't ask me, and I don't want to tell you either, because you may not be open to what I'm going to say,
Right.
but I don't tell them that I think that the Jesus experience is supposed to be our experience,
Uh-huh.
and that you're not supposed to worship this guy. You're supposed to be this guy.
Exactly, and that's what he tells you. I mean, he says it all the time.
And that's what he says. And it's
Right.
like, okay, and it's like, all right, well, what would now this would be like a different tangent, is like, what would the church be like if they used the Jefferson Bible? And have you heard about the Jefferson Bible?
I have not heard about the
Well,
Jefferson Bible.
Thomas Jefferson was a rationalist. He was the granted he was a slaveholder. He did all those bad things, but we're not going to look at that stuff. What we're going to be looking at is who Thomas Jefferson was as a Renaissance thinker, a rationalist. And so when he looked at the Bible, he went through the Bible and threw everything out that he thought that didn't matter. He threw out all of the miracles. He threw out the resurrection. He threw out the virgin birth. He threw all that stuff out, all the miracles, and just went with what the essential story was. And so then maybe as a guiding thing, if you throw Paul out, you throw the book of Revelations out, because that's one of the most damaging books that exist out there. But if you were to look at it as, because people are trying to shoehorn every single situation into, oh, the end is near, and then thinking,
Yeah.
well, that book doesn't even apply to us.
Right.
It already happened. If you want to try to apply it to history, it happened to the state, the nation of Israel in 88. Everything, but the world didn't end. Well, yes, it did. The world did end. It ended for that people in that time because their temple was destroyed. Their whole way of practicing religion ended. Their world ended. It ended. And then, well, with all these other things, well, that stuff was just dream stuff. It was just it was mythological language. And that's, to a lot of people, it's extremely unsettling. And when I sometimes bring that stuff up to people, and if it's like an evangelical, they say, Bill, why do you hate God so much? How come you hate God?
Oh, wow.
When you say stuff like that, that just tells me you hate God. Or I got off of Facebook for the most part, and I opened it back up again to go pull my photos off, and then but anyways, I need to like delete my account, or not completely, but anyways. But it's like he would say, when I go down and look at your Facebook page, all I see is a person who hates God. And I think, what does a painting of a landscape like this make you say that I hate God?
Right.
And I'm thinking, I don't get that. Why did you pass judgment on me? And he said, I didn't pass judgment on you. And I'm thinking, and it's like, well, okay, you passed judgment on me. And how do you know that I hate God? And I said, well, I just see God differently than you do. And in that statement, that translates to him as, I hate God because I see God differently than they do. And so I don't know. That's why I stay far away from evangelicals.
Yeah, exactly. I in college I had um they didn't, they lived on the same floor as me, and I basically, like, they talk about like gang stalking and all this stuff. They gang stalked me freshman year of college. They were trying to get me to go to their church. Like, they come up to me while I was eating in the cafeteria. Like, they just everywhere in my classes. Like, these people were everywhere, and they were like, come to church. And I was like, well, I'm Catholic, but so no thanks. Like, I already have my religion. I don't want to join yours. So they're like, just come, to church, one Sunday. And if you don't like it, you can leave and you don't have to come back. So I don't know how many months, like 3, 4, 5 months, I finally like broke down and was like, fine, like, these people have to leave me alone. Like, I'm tired of them, like, but harassing me.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I'll go. So I went, and to me, it was just the most ridiculous, cultish thing I'd ever seen in my life. I don't know if they were I think they were evangelical. And it was just too out there for me. And of course, I just went so they'd leave me alone. So
Mhm.
they were like singing and dancing in the aisles and like I was just like, I'm out, and I left.
Yeah.
And they at least they kept their word. They never bothered me again, but I was just like, leave me alone. Like, I'm Catholic, like, and at that point I still considered myself Catholic. Um but I was just like, leave me alone. And there's things like that I still do as a human being. Like I love praying the rosary. I
Mhm.
love praying like that's so meditative to me. That's like the only, and Reiki, like that's how I meditate. I can't just like sit still and, I can like stare at a candle, like I can do candle meditation. Um, but like meditating while giving Reiki or saying mantras or, praying the rosary, that's how I meditate. Um, Reiki is like amazing. So I recommend like if if you're interested in energy healing at all, look into Reiki because it works on your chakras, it works on your subtle energy like field, and then it can help with physical ailments. Like um Reiki is just like such a beautiful tool. And
Mhm.
again, it doesn't matter what your belief is, what your religious background is. Anybody and everybody can practice Reiki.
Yeah.
And then there's all these different types. There's Blue Star Reiki, there's like that's my favorite besides, just the original Usui Reiki. I love um yeah, Selena, I'm the same way, like guided meditation totally. Like yeah, if you guys like check out my original channel, like go all the way to the beginning. Like I said, there's guided meditations. Like I swear I'm like ADHD because my brain is like going 100 miles a
Yeah.
minute, and like I lose track of what I'm saying all the time.
Well, I
So
know what I was like thinking it was that when you talked about going into one of those churches, I went into I had the opportunity to spend the night, and I slept in a church all night, one of those churches.
I did that actually at a Catholic
And
church in New York
it
City. It
was
was cool.
Catholic church, but this was not a Catholic church. This was one of those Assembly of a Gods type of churches or something like that.
Oh,
And you know what? Felt like I was tormented by evil spirits the whole night.
I believe that.
And so my experience with like going, I went to a Potter's house service once, which they, when they started speaking in tongues, I thought it was just like a hotbed of demon activity, and it was like I got to get the hell out of here as fast as possible because you're gonna be and so I just saw that whole thing is that there's these energies that exist, and so like if I were to talk a bit more about like there are these apocalyptic energies that exist,
Uh-huh.
and they're present and so I don't know if that's the right word for it, but I went to a charismatic Catholic prayer service once, and I could just feel this spirit. It was like it was generated right there, and it jumped from person to person to person. There was like this hot fire, kind of like a fiery energy like this, and it was just jumping around, or like
Oh
this
wow.
fiery energy, and or if you look at this it was just moving. It was always moving, and I kind of feel like that energy is kind of always present in humanity, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's true.
Hmm.
Like, I'm trying, maybe this is like going way off into a different tangent, but and it's something I'm kind of passionate about because people have been predicting the end of the world since the world began, and every year is like if you go back into history and you read history, and like you like in the founding of the United States, the the Christians that came, they saw the world as going to hell, and oh, Jesus is going to come back anytime, and it's gonna, and then people set dates and it never happens and it never happens. Oh, they read this. Oh, this is happening now, and this is happening now, and oh, it's just gonna happen anytime now, and then it doesn't.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
what that tells me is that yes, we could destroy ourselves, but does that mean that we will? Does that mean that humankind really, really wants to do that?
I think so. I
You think so?
I think so.
Hmm.
I think that um I mean, why else would it be such a well, I mean, I know that they say the world is ending to control people. Fear is the easiest way to gain control. It's a tactic of cults.
Yeah.
So, if you create fear and you generate fear and you create an us versus them, then you've got people hooked. You've got people giving you their money and giving you their energy, and you've got people under your control.
Hmm.
Um so it's all of that. It's a way to keep people controlled. It's a way to get people's money. It's a way to create subservience. It's a way to create power within themselves to give these priests or these ministers or the whoever's at the top saying this power. Um, Again, if we stop giving our power away, if we realize that nobody has authority over us except ourselves, then they can't control us. Like, this is why I limit, I don't watch the news. I haven't watched the news in 20 plus years.
Yeah.
Um, I can know what's going on. Like, I can glance at headlines. I live in the world. You hear people talking, but I don't need to have that emotional, because anytime someone's trying to get an emotional reaction from with you, that's them putting those energy hooks into you, creating fear, and now you've given them your power.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. And it is true because in the last few years I've worked really, really hard to get those things out of me.
Yeah.
You know, the and then, if you just like stray a little bit into the politics or the current events or whatever, you just suck that energy into you, and you see, and so there's all these different things, and these different forces, and then I asked my question, did that come from me, or is that also what part of what the rest of the world is, or our collective consciousness is experiencing at this moment? So I think partially. So I guess, like, yeah, some of it does come from me, but then it's like these hooks, they come into you, and they're pushing on your buttons, and it puts in a fight or flight response, and
Right.
what's really going on, is putting in, because you get these inputs, and you have those more primal forces in you that want to push you to all these other things, and yeah, I can see that. I can
I
s
I love sorry to cut you off, Bill,
No, it's
but
okay.
I love Reiki and energy healing because it really teaches you to like be present and like get in your body and um to realize we're all connected and
Mhm.
that we're all human. Like, for me, my spiritual path is really about learning to be more human, more compassionate, um, relearning literally how to be human, meaning to be empathetic, meaning like all these things that are trained out of us as children in a way. Um, yeah, they say to share and these things, but really, like, as you go through school and college and life, like, you're taught, like, me, like, very individualistic, at least in, the United States. Everything's a competition. It's all about, like, you have to win, and you have to make the most money, and you have to do this, and you have to do that, and, your coworkers aren't your coworkers, they're your competition. You're
Mhm.
all, like, fighting over this, like, one little small resource that they say that's all that there is, when really there's all these resources. So they put in this, like, anchor and this mentality that of lack, right?
Yes.
And that we're all fighting over these small resources. So it's us versus them, or me versus you, or but that's not true. It's about helping, and it's about you know being compassionate and raising up, like, the lowest denominator or the youngest, like taking care of children, taking care of the elderly, taking care of your family, taking care of your neighbors.
Mhm.
We, as a society, don't know our neighbors anymore. Um and it's just, that's why the world is so scary, because everyone's, like, just thinking for themselves. So, people are afraid to get to know their neighbors. They're afraid to get to know their community. And so for me, the spiritual path is learning to reconnect with everything that I was taught that was bad. Sharing community, people aren't my competition. We're all literally in this together. We're all on this earth together. And it doesn't matter where somebody lives or what religion, we're all just human beings.
Mhm.
And we
Yeah.
all share this energy. So, like, there's, like, this idea of, I think you were kind of talking about it earlier, like mind virus. Like, we all have a mind virus in the United
Yeah.
States.
Yeah.
Um, and it's literally destroying our civilization, and we're allowing it to happen, and we're saying it's something else, but it's really this incorrect way of thinking. It's this detachment of, we have no power, and
Yeah. Yeah. It's
we have
I
no resources.
I've always thought that, okay, because this is also would pose a question, and it says, why do you hate God? And I might say, well, what do you think that spirit world is like? Do you think it maybe is possible that, is it a top down system of control, or is spirit world a democracy, a place where there is all kinds of ideas? Because I kind of almost think of spirit world, and this is where I go way into the realm of heresy, and I would say I'm and so this is that mind virus thing here,
Yep.
and that's what I kind of interpret that as, a mind virus, that
Def-
card. And then you have the you can write your own screenplay. You can write yourself a new way, because this is what the
exactly.
book is that's right before us, but it doesn't have to be that way, because our world, because our even our form of governments, all that can change, and everything is fluid. I see our entire civilization and everything, the way it's structured, that everything is fluid, and it's just like, and it can form into these other things. If you just change the mold, all that water and everything will just flow in there and find its own equilibrium, and it'll just work.
Yes.
And so if you want to, I mean, I think they, with the risk of, like, because politics was not something that I was going to stray into in this show, in this channel. But a lot of people in this country weren't ready for a woman president, and with a risk of uh, of of identifying, coming out, because I was really excited by that. I was very excited by that prospect, and um but that's not what happened, and something else happened. But that's another story. And but you talked about this system of lack, and that's a system of control. But
Right.
Even money itself is like, okay, we got this national debt, and it's like what, $34 trillion, and I think, well, wait a minute now, money's not even real.
We could just say it's gone and it's gone. Why don't we do that?
We can't, and why can't we just? That's right, because that was one of the, and I
Yeah.
had a conversation with someone like a few years ago, and I thought, well, we're never going to be able to pay that national debt off. Why don't we just do a big jubilee and do a reset? It
Yeah.
resets the whole system, and then there's like, we better just pray it just keeps on rolling, because that reset you're talking about is going to wipe out my entire savings and my wealth, and everything that I've worked for is just going to be gone. And then all these billion, whatever, these people that they worship, all their everything will just evaporate, and we just go back to zero. But the and and but we can create an entirely different civilization. But
And but the way we need to do that though is that's one big way, but the other way, and this is going to offend a lot of people. So I don't know if you want me to say it, but we have to get rid of the Bible. It has to go. It has to go.
yeah,
This Bible, it's it's
well,
it needs to go.
I kind of feel like, well, it's like I would go this way. Have you read Walden Pond?
No, I haven't.
Well, in Walden Pond, and it was written by Thoreau, who was also an Enlightenment thinker,
Hmm.
and Thoreau, and it's in there. I went through it on an audiobook a couple times, and that's where I found it, and it was the most profound thing that I'd ever heard, and it kind of got me thinking down on totally different lines on different things. That he says in it that every generation needs to write their own scriptures. And so if we look at, let's say, the past generation, it had that the Bible was written in, their prophecies and all that pertain to their world.
Yeah.
Not the only thing that may pertain in there is what Jefferson did, is he pulled out these essential teachings of how to love your neighbor, and that's it. Because that was the only thing that was important in it. Everything else is not important. And then you look at what's the trends that are happening in our world, and in our world today, the church is dying. And if the church does not change, it will not be here in 100 years from now.
Do
It's
you
going to
think
be.
that that's why the evangelical church has hijacked our democracy?
Yes, and that's because they're trying to stop there, because it's
Their
that it's
death.
that
Yeah.
thing, if they're trying to stop it, it's like it's this whole thing of trying to force something. Trying to force God's hand. You're trying to make this situation so that, oh, Israel, and we got to do this and we got to do that, and we got to make sure that the world war starts with Israel, and then all these people will, 2/3 of the human population will be destroyed, and Jesus will come again. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, Jesus already came. Jesus has already come again. And the problem is that you are too closed in your mind and your heart to see that that Jesus comes when you love your neighbor. Every time
Exactly.
that you do what Jesus taught, Jesus comes again.
Exactly.
And so that's another point of where I hate God, because I'm not falling in this role of where you need to and it's like, well, there's nowhere did Jesus say that we need to worship Jesus. He never said
No.
that.
And he
He never
says
said
don't.
that.
Yeah.
And then no one, and what does a personal relationship with Jesus mean? I don't know what that means, you know, and I don't think they know what it means either. You know.
No, they
Anyways,
don't.
you know,
It's just a dogma.
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
Selena, that's true. Some neighbors don't. Like I've had some crazy neighbors. Like I always try to be friendly, but yeah. No, I mean I get your point and like it's a joke, but like it's just the sense of community. We just need to rebuild a sense of community,
Mhm.
and I don't believe in, worshiping any god either, like let alone Jesus. Um
Yeah.
I believe I am attracted to ancestral worship because those are your ancestors. They literally gave you life. If they weren't here before you, you wouldn't be
Yeah,
here.
and that's kind of the parts of things about Catholicism that attracts me
Yeah.
is that it allows for your ancestors to be alive again. And
Mhm.
whereas Protestantism is completely divorced. It divorced
Right.
itself all of these things, and then it just fractured in all these different things, and then it becomes whatever you think it means and whatnot. And then it is this thing of control. And well, this has been a great conversation. I hope that I haven't because I brought up these triggering things. I hope that I haven't triggered you to where you're not you know I don't want to seem like I'm an unwelcoming person here.
And
That's what.
no, you like Bill, you're fine, and you're awesome, and I love talking to people about theology and religions and hearing people's different point of view. Like I love that. Like I live for that. Like I said, like I took a lot of religion classes in college. I probably could have minored in it, except you had to take, oh, he's gone. You had to take Christian Bible classes, and I didn't want to do that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I when I was like in I didn't finish a master's in theology, but I had remember this one experience, and one of the my classmates was saying, I just don't understand you, Bill. I don't understand how you can do what you just did when I was arguing it with a paper and I was talking. I don't understand that you just don't. But my brain, I was like thinking of these pieces and these parts, and I was like thinking, and I was putting them all into and thinking, and I wasn't thinking in terms because I have never believed that the Bible was written by God.
Right.
I
It
always
wasn't.
believed that it was written by human beings, that they were 'cause saw it as like they were the mystics, and they had this experience, and they didn't know how to explain it, and so they put it down into poetry. They put it
Mhm.
down in these things, or I think it was in Jeremiah who says that God wrote the law on your heart. And then I was thinking, what does that mean? And then thinking, well, maybe that law is not a set of rules to follow, but it's that what was written on your heart is that you as an individual have, can connect up to this source consciousness without an intermediate step, that you don't a temple. You
Exactly.
need this sacrificial system. These things are there because they help to focus your mind so that you can have that experience. But there are all these other things that kind of get in the way, the politics and the dogma and the all these other things but whatever. But then in our society we are at this we have so many luxuries because we know how to read,
Right.
and we have a little bit more leisure time than what people did before. And then you have like people who
Oh,
are
that's actually wrong. People in well, okay, maybe not back in 308, whatever, but back in the medieval time, people had more leisure time. Women, especially had a lot more leisure time than they have today. They had like pubs that were just for women that women could go hang out in, and they would go, talk about their lives and get support from other women, and they had like women only spaces, and they had the ability. It wasn't until like the church like started saying, like, accusing women of witchcraft. And then women became afraid to hang out with other women for being accused of witchcraft. So like women used to have women only spaces where they could go and have drinks and have lunch and hang out with their female friends. And once the witchcraft like fear came in with the Protestant religion and accusing women of witchcraft, when that was a way to control women and say you have to stay at home at all times and you have to like be home cooking, cleaning, taking care of the family all the time. But sorry, I know that that's something different. Maybe men had less leisure time, but women used to have more. And then also before
Mhm.
capitalism, um people had more leisure time. They didn't work as many hours. They actually worked less hours than we do now.
Yeah, and
So,
then
but,
if you
you know, so
if you
I
go back in
remember I
sorry.
remember when you were talking about, that experience you had, what I was trying to say like an hour ago was that in this religion class I took, like the psychology of religion, they did studies on people who meditated, and they did a study in DC actually, and that's where I went to college. They had, I don't know how many people go meditate, and the rate dropped like dramatically while people were
Mhm.
meditating. So if you have a place where people meditate like in a group, or as they say, a church where people come together to pray, it is going to change the frequency and the energy. It's going to raise it up, and there's going to be like less violence there. There's going to be less crime, less, all of these horrible things in society are, it's going to decrease. So
Mhm.
it's intention, it's, prayer, it's focused, like belief, and just being quiet. If you are quiet within yourself, you're going to quiet down the energy and the people around you, and it's
Mhm.
really cool. And they've done studies like prayer works, like, speaking about like not asking for permission. I think we did, there was a little girl in my kindergarten class who had cancer, and my mom and I used to pray for her every night. And I remember she had moved away, and it was like a couple years later her mom came, they came to visit or something, and they just happened to see us out and about, and they came up, the mom went up to my mom and was like crying and like thanked her and said, thank you so much for praying for my daughter. She's been in remission now. And
Mhm.
that's just a personal story, but they've done studies that prayer actually does work. So I think it's cool that, psychology, like science, has proven that things like prayer and meditation work, but I don't think we need to have them attached to a religion for it to work either.
Yeah, no, no, and that's the thing is I was like, one of those things where I was, talking with someone and was because I said just as much. I didn't think that needed we didn't need the church in order to connect up to God.
Right.
You don't need it. We don't need it anymore. And,
No.
and it's kind of but then a person who's like in there, they think, well, certainly, well, how are you going to learn? I think I was going through the food bank line, and I said, I don't think we need. It's this is this these religions, they don't matter, and they don't exist beyond this world.
Right.
There's like this there's a all these they're all here, and I'm 'cause it was but there's those energies, they exist, and we tap into them, and some of them, they become Jesus, some of them they become Buddha, some
Right.
of them they become Krishna, some of them they become, the tooth fairy, or
Right.
what. It's like they are it's like a maybe it's like a technology. Maybe we're looking at these are by technology, or how I sometimes would have these moments where when these thoughts enter my head, I almost get kind of frightened by them, because I think is maybe it's because it's too true, and thinking that, well, what if God is like, is really, or source is like an advanced civilization the civilization that was before, and you come into a sense of that this civilization is so advanced that it has come to a place where it creates whole universes. And then it becomes like, well, what is that? And then maybe this place where we're at is just a playground for 'em. You know, you're on a job, and you have this job, and maybe your job is to regulate some star someplace to make sure it stays regulated, but you need to have it go on a vacation for a while. So you come in and you become Sarah, and you're on
Right.
a taking a vacation from that job or whatever you've been doing for who knows how long, regulating the life of a star or some little stray rock that's going, whatever that your job. You have these jobs, and but every now but you got to go out and play sometime. And so then I mean, these are just the thoughts that come, maybe they're just, like I had said, I'm pretty well. Sci-fi is one of those things and where I would say that, and here I'm rambling, is that sci-fi, I think, is our prophecy for our generation,
Yeah,
and our scriptures and everything come out of our literature. That there are a lot of writers are just they're just sort of plugged in to the inspiration realm, and these ideas are coming into existence. And you look at Gene Roddenberry or whatever and Star Trek, and how much stuff from Star Trek is now in our present life in
exactly.
one form or another, you know
But that's why I'm really careful with what I watch. Like I won't watch dystopian movies and I won't watch like the Hunger Games because I feel like the more energy you put towards something, the more likely it is to happen. And there's certain things I just don't want to happen in our world. So I'm like, I'm not gonna watch it. I'm not gonna give it energy. I'm not gonna
Mhm.
um because I don't want that for our world.
Yeah, that's interesting. Hmm. Anyways, well, I will show you what your card is. We have to get back to our duties, and this is how I interpreted your mind, because we did this experience of, this exercise of telepathy. You gave me your thought of what you wanted to be. You wanted yellow here, you wanted purple here, and you wanted pink down here, and then
It's
you
so
wanted
pretty.
the rods to be like fire streaking through the sky.
Yeah, it's awesome. It looks great, Bill.
And then you kind of just briefly, you did explain the Eight of Wands by through Reiki, and saying that you can project this energy from afar with these intentions, and each one of these rods is an intention streaking through the sky of
Exactly.
intentional energy. And I know that I have really. I got one other thing I need to do before we stop. Today's what, July 1st, right?
Yes.
Okay. Um, I am just making a note of coloring the tarot with tarot and oracle of the soul on July 1st, 2025. There's so many things to talk about here.
I know.
And so I know if you're open to it, if you'd like to come on again and we can just talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't want you to ever feel, triggered if I bring up the C word. And you know what the C word is, and I'm granted I get kind of triggered by it too, but as if as you know that now that I'm a heretic, and I'm guilty of wrong thinking, and I've made wrong thinking my whole religion, my whole path. And so, like, if I were to just to close it out here, if this was something that I a long time, I in a prayer intention was that, okay, I don't know what you this is paraphrasing. I don't know what you want for me, and so I'm just gonna let whatever you want is what I want. And so this is where I'm at. So I'm at learning how to be a tarot practitioner and all of that, and gone through this path, and I've had all these things, and this is where I'm at now, and I'm here talking to you, and we had a lively conversation, and neither of one of us steamrolled each other too much.
Exactly. Exactly. Cool. Well, thank you, Bill, so much for having me on. It wasn't, you made it easy peasy. It's funny. I had outlined, I had made up notes, and I was like, oh, we didn't talk about anything on my outline or my notes.
Well, last night after I finished my stream, I went into your channel and started thinking, okay, I need to see if I can go through your videos and to see what kind of questions to ask. But then when I went into your description, it said Reiki, and I said, that's what we're gonna talk about.
Very cool.
That's what it's all gonna. That's what we're gonna talk about, and we can talk more about that. Like with the tools or the technology, and we'll go in and talk about this stuff as a technology that we are manipulating, and so forth, um,
Yeah.
and
Very
go
cool.
completely into the realm of Star Trek
All
with
right.
one.
Sounds
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well,
Oh, thank
thank you very much. And then when you do the go live together feature, as soon as I turn off the camera, there's no backstage and
Okay.
so forth. All
Cool.
right.
Well, thank you, Bill.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Bye. Oh, all right. There was a. We'll see you all the next time, and we'll be back with you with another one of these on Saturday. Bye bye.
Bye.